Chapter 8. Matt was the first to wake up. What a strange dream, he thought. He stood up and looked around. Where am I? And Linda? I was with Linda. Where is she? It was dark, but now he began to distinguish his surroundings. He was in the open air. There was a cool breeze and he heard the noise of sleeping animals. There was a smell, too, of the animals and of life in general. People lived here, but what place was it? There were stars in the sky above, but he was surrounded by walls of stone. The castle, of course. Now I remember. But there's something strange about it. It's night. And where's Linda? Matt, is that you? Came a whisper from the dark, and Linda appeared in the moonlight. She was confused and frightened. Where are we? What's happening? She asked. We're in the castle, said Matt. But it's different, and why is it dark? Don't know, stammered Linda. Matt, I'm scared. Suddenly a voice broke the silence of the night. Who goes there? It's a guard. He's got a sword, whispered Linda, and instinctively they started running away from the voice. A torch! A torch! Wake up, intruders! The voice shouted, and immediately the castle was full of flaming torches, making grotesque shadows on the walls. In the torchlight, Matt and Linda saw that the walls of the castle were intact. It wasn't a ruin. These people weren't English heritage guides. But there wasn't time to think. Run, Linda! Run faster! Yelled Matt. Where are we going? Cried Linda. Out of here! Come on! But a guard caught Linda. Matt, don't stop! Run, run! She shouted. Matt wanted to stop to help Linda, but in front of him there was another guard. He had a torch in one hand and a sword in the other. Matt ran up a staircase, up and onto the ramparts. He noticed as he went that the castle was all perfectly intact. But now he was trapped. There was a guard on the staircase and two other men with swords were on the ramparts to his left and right. They were all very angry. The game is over, boy, growled the man on the stairs. Oh, no it isn't, shouted Matt, remembering the tour around the castle. The moat. The castle had a moat. Matt jumped from the ramparts and hoped desperately that his intuition was right. Splash. He hit the muddy water of the moat. The moon reflected on the water broke into 1,000 pieces. Inside the castle, Linda stood petrified between two guards with long swords. A tall man with dark, angry eyes and a scar on his right cheek appeared. And who are you? Said the man, observing her closely. My lord, a guard said to the man, look at her garments. She must be a witch. Chapter 9. A witch, possibly, but a witch so fair? The tall man looked at Linda and she trembled. A guard said, Lord Blackheart, there was a boy with her. He jumped from the walls. We must find him. Don't worry, replied the lord. Nobody could survive that fall. He is probably at the bottom of the moat. He smiled horribly, and Linda felt desperate. Oh no, Matt can't be dead, she thought. Lord Blackheart continued to look at her. A very fair maid. Take her to the great hall, he ordered. I want to question her. The guards pushed Linda towards the huge door of the keep. Inside there was an immense hall. There were many flaming torches along the walls, but the room was shadowy and sinister. There were also numerous long standards of different colors and a long wooden table in the middle of the room. On the left, there was a very big fireplace, but no fire. Linda felt cold. Leave us, Lord Blackheart ordered the guards. Linda shivered with cold and fear. She didn't want to be alone with this horrible man. "This isn't happening to me," she cried. "I don't believe it. It's a nightmare." "Can a fool not sleep?" A voice came from the shadows near the fireplace. It was a jester in a red and gold striped costume and a hat with bells on it. He looked curiously at Linda. "A maid was never made like this. What a strange costume." The jester smiled. He had a kind face, and Linda felt a little better. Lord Blackheart said, "My guards found her in the castle. Her companion is dead. Is she not fair?" "Fair, my lord. Are you hungry?" "No, fool, you don't understand me. Is she not lovely?" "I understand you very well, my Lord Blackheart. You don't understand me." The jester laughed, and the hells on his hat jingled. Linda smiled. "Enough!" shouted the lord, irritated. "Who are you, maid?" "My name's Linda Chapman, and I come from Greenwood." The jester said, "Greenwood? A wood is green, but would a wood be greenwood?" "Be quiet, jester," said Lord Blackheart. "The maid is confused. Perhaps she is from another region. Why are you here, my pretty?" He put a hand on her shoulder. Linda didn't like how he looked at her. "I wanted to visit the castle with Matt, but I don't understand what is happening," she replied. The jester laughed. "Visit our castle? Strange." He looked at Lord Blackheart. "Perhaps my lord is happy you visited our castle." Lord Blackheart continued to look at Linda. He smiled and touched her hair. "Now you are here. You must stay," he whispered. Linda moved quickly and bit Lord Blackheart's hand. "Don't touch me!" she shouted. "Ouch!" cried the lord, and the jester laughed. "You stupid girl," Blackheart shouted. "Guards, take this witch away." "Which witch, my lord? I see no witch," the jester said quietly. Lord Blackheart pointed angrily at Linda, who was furious now. "This witch! Throw her in the dungeons." Chapter 10. The forest near the castle was quiet. Under the huge moon, nothing moved. The forest animals slept. Suddenly there was a noise, something running. A fox. The animals woke up. The noise was loud. A hungry wolf? The animals were agitated. They wanted to hide. Too late. A figure came out into the moonlight. It was a boy. He stopped running, exhausted. The animals were happy. There was no danger. But there was a terrible smell. The boy also noticed the smell. Yuck! Now I remember, the castle toilets were over the moat. It was Matt. He wasn't dead, but he was very dirty and very smelly. The smell confirmed it wasn't a dream. He and Linda were in the Middle Ages. Linda, Matt thought, worried. I hope she's okay, but I can't do anything now. Tomorrow I'll go to the castle and try to explain. Explain what? That we come from the future? The computer. Matt remembered the strange white light from the computer. Mr. Wells's computer. That's why he was so nervous. This was his idea. Matt was very angry with Mr. Wells, but now the computer was more important. We need it if we want to return to the future. It must be in the castle. I have to help Linda and then find the computer. Matt stood up with determination, but he felt tired. I'll sleep until morning, then I'll go to the castle. He looked around for a place to sleep, but suddenly he had a strange sensation. He felt someone watching him. Who's there? He asked nervously. No one answered. I know someone is there, he said, angry now. A small deer appeared through the trees. It looked curiously at Matt. It was you, Matt whispered, smiling. Then something flew by his ear. An arrow hit a tree near the deer and the animal ran away. Matt turned and in the darkness saw the figure of a boy. "Hey, you," he shouted, but the figure started to run. Matt ran faster and he caught the boy. The boy was terrified and stammered, "Don't kill me. I'm sorry. We're starving." "I don't want to kill you," said Matt. "Are you from the castle?" asked the boy. He was a little older than Matt. "No." Matt thought for a moment. "I'm a pilgrim from the north." The boy smiled. He didn't have many teeth. "In the village we are very poor. Life was better before. Lord Duxbury was good and strong, but he went on the Crusades. His brother became the Lord, but a bad knight, Blackheart, killed him. Now Blackheart is our lord. We work all day on the land, but he takes our crops. We have little to eat. My father is dead. He was killed by Blackheart's men because he hunted in the Lord's forest. He wanted food for my brothers and sisters. I'm the oldest, so now I hunt at night." He was very thin and had simple, dirty clothes. Matt was sorry for him, but then he looked at his clothes. They were covered in mud, or worse. "Pilgrim," smiled the boy. "You can come to my home for the night. Are you hungry? I'm sorry I didn't catch the deer." "Thanks, you're very kind," said Matt. "And, Pilgrim," continued the boy, "tomorrow you can have a bath in the pond. You smell Chapter 11. "What's your name?" Matt asked the boy. He laughed. "What is my name, Pilgrim?" They were out of the forest. "This is where we work." There was a big open field divided into strips. Every strip was for a different crop. "Do you have any animals?" Matt asked. "Yes, some sheep, pigs, and a cow. At night they stay in our cottage." Matt was surprised. "But they don't smell like you, Pilgrim." They crossed the field and came to the village. There was one street of dry mud with a dozen cottages. The cottages were made of wood and had a thatched roof. "This is my cottage," whispered Watt. "Shh, the children are sleeping." "What?" a girl whispered from the darkness. The voice came from the cottage opposite. "Anne, why aren't you in bed?" asked Watt. "I was worried. Did you catch anything?" asked the girl. "Only a smelly pilgrim?" The girl laughed and said good night. "That's Anne," said Watt. "She will be my wife. Are you married?" "No," smiled Matt. He remembered that medieval people married very young. He felt admiration for this boy with the responsibilities of a man. On the cottage it was very dark, but Matt saw there was one long room, divided into two parts. From the other part came the noise and smell of the animals. The air was humid and smoke from the fire irritated his eyes. "Here's some pottage," said Watt. He offered Matt a wooden bowl of soup. "No spoon, I have to drink it," Matt thought, and drank the tepid mix of vegetables and cereal. He felt better, but he didn't like taking the family's food. "I'm fine," he said when Watt offered more. "Then drink some ale. My mother makes it." Matt drank some beer from a flask. "Now to bed," said Watt and got into bed, still dressed. Matt couldn't see much, but moved towards the bed. He started to take off his dirty clothes, but Watt whispered, "Tomorrow you can wash. Now sleep." Matt got into the bed, but his legs were too long. He remembered that medieval people were quite short. He also saw that Watt wasn't horizontal in the bed, but sat, his back on the pillows. "Oh, yes," he thought, remembering Mr. Wells' lessons. They were frightened of death. The bed wasn't very comfortable. The mattress was full of straw and the blanket was rough wool. Something ran over Matt's foot. What was that? Probably a rat. Watt replied. Matt quickly pulled up his legs. "Good night," said Watt. Matt was very tired and slept immediately. Strange dreams filled the night. Angry guards, Mr. Wells, rats, computers, and Linda. Then suddenly there was a loud man's voice. People shouting, "A witch! A witch!" "Wake up, Pilgrim," someone said, pulling Matt's arm. He slowly opened his eyes. It was morning and there was great commotion. Matt was astonished to see a lot of children in the bed. He counted 8. They all repeated the same words. "A witch!" "What's happening?" Matt asked Watt. "A knight came to the village. He said there's a witch in the castle." Linda, Matt thought. What will happen to her? He asked. An ordeal. This morning in the pond, few people survive. Chapter 12. Linda opened her eyes slowly. It was morning and there was a pale light in the room. It's time for school, she thought. Then she saw the slimy stone walls and the tiny window, and she remembered. She wasn't at home in Greenwood. She was in the dungeons of Duxbury Castle on a straw mattress on the floor. She felt very cold and lonely. Somebody knocked at the door. Linda stood up and pulled some straw out of her hair. The door opened. It was the jester. He gave her some bread and a bowl of milk. Linda thanked him and ate hungrily. "Do you understand why you are here?" he asked. He was friendly but serious, and he spoke anxiously. "Lord Blackheart thinks I'm a witch, but it's not true," she replied. "I believe you," he said, "but my lord is angry and you are in danger. Today he will take you to the village pond for a public ducking." A ducking? Linda was shocked. She remembered ducking from her history lessons. They put people underwater for a long time to test their innocence. They often died. "But he can't do that to me. I didn't do anything wrong," she cried desperately. The jester looked at Linda sadly. "I'm sorry, my poor strange maid. I can't help you now. Good luck." A guard appeared. "Are you ready, witch? The cart is outside," he said. He pushed her up the stairs and into the bailey. Linda saw the cart and horse ready to take her to the village pond. Blackheart was beside the cart. Linda saw his dark, cruel face. He smiled horribly. Now she wasn't frightened, but very angry. The cart moved slowly towards the village. Some peasants walked beside it. One shouted to the cart driver, "Is this the witch? She's very young." "So perhaps she will survive," laughed the cart driver nastily. Linda shivered, but was determined to be brave. She began to make a plan. "I'm a good swimmer. I can try to escape under the water," she thought. Now the cart was in the village street, and Linda saw the poor cottages and the dirty little children with no shoes. "I must appear very strange in my tracksuit and trainers," she thought. After the cottages, Linda saw the pond. It was very large, full of reeds and surrounded by grass and trees. Some ducks swam happily on the water. Lord Blackheart was near the water with the guards. They had a long rope and a large sack full of stones. "Good day, my pretty. But it is a sad day when a fair maid dies as a witch," he said, laughing cruelly. There were many villagers there, looking curiously at Linda. They talked noisily and pointed at her. Linda looked hopefully for Matt, but he wasn't there. The only kind face was the jester's. He looked quickly at Linda and smiled. Then he started to amuse the villagers, and they laughed at his jokes. "His name is Blackheart. His heart is black. He kills his witches with a rope and sack." A guard pushed Linda from the cart and tied the rope around her. "I must stay calm," she thought. "Don't forget the sack," ordered Blackheart. The witch must stay under the water until I decide. Chapter 13. Blackheart gave the signal and a guard pushed Linda into the pond. The water was cold and deep. Linda desperately tried to swim, but the sack of stones pulled her under. Stay calm, she thought, remembering her swimming lessons. I've got enough air for a minute or two. I must take off the rope. Linda pulled hard, but the rope was tied very well. Above the water, Lord Blackheart watched. Bubbles came to the surface. The guards looked at him, but he didn't give any orders. Minutes passed. The villagers talked nervously. Why does Blackheart wait? The girl will not survive, they said. The jester spoke, sadly and angrily. You are all responsible for this crime. A young maid's death is a tragic rhyme. Blackheart waited, then finally he was satisfied. Pull her up, he shouted. The guards pulled the rope and the sack of stones appeared. But where was Linda? The crowd, incredulous, moved towards the water. Blackheart pushed through the people, furious. Where is the witch? Find her. He pushed a guard into the pond. My lord, I can't swim, said the guard. Don't stop, you imbecile. You must find her. Blackheart was hysterical with anger. On the other side of the pond, in the shadow of the trees, two figures emerged silently from the water. Matt and Linda. Nobody saw them running through the forest in the direction of the castle. Matt, stop for a second. I'm exhausted, implored Linda. Okay, Linda, but we don't have much time. Linda sat on the grass. How did you know I was under the water, Matt? A guard announced the ducking in the village this morning. My new friend Watt showed me the place and gave me a knife. Then I hid in the long grass beside the pond. When you were underwater, I swam to you and cut the rope. I know you're a good swimmer, so it was easy to swim to the other side of the pond. You saved my life, Matt, said Linda, looking at him in admiration. Matt's face became pink. No problem, he said, embarrassed. But now we must find the computer. We need it to go back to the future. I know where it is, smiled Linda. I hid it when we arrived. Great, let's go, said Matt happily. Okay, said Linda. I'm tired of being a witch. And I'm tired of being wet and smelly, laughed Matt. At the pond, Blackheart's face was red with anger. Who is responsible for this? He yelled, looking at the villagers. Perhaps she was a real witch, said a voice from the crowd, so she disappeared. Silence, ignorant fools, shouted Blackheart. He pointed his sword at the villagers. Enough, cried Watt. You are the fool. He picked up some mud and threw it at the Lord. It hit him directly in the face. First, there was silence. The villagers were shocked. Then everybody began to laugh. Blackheart slowly removed the mud. His face was a mask of fury. I give you work, a home and my protection. You insult me. I can find other people to work on my land. Guards, kill them all. Chapter 14. Stop! Ordered a strong, brave voice. Blackheart's knights immediately stopped their attack. The voice came from the village. Everybody looked in that direction. A group of men appeared. One man was on a horse. He had a chainmail coat, an iron helmet, and iron leggings. Under the helmet was a good, strong face. Stop, I say, the man shouted again. Watt remembered that face. When he was a small boy, that face signified justice. That was before Blackheart, before his father's death, before poverty. It's Lord Duxbury, Watt shouted with joy. The other villagers started to shout too. Long live Duxbury! Death to Blackheart! Blackheart's knights were frightened now. They looked for their lord, but he wasn't there. The villagers surrounded them, shouting, "Death to Blackheart and his men! Stop, everybody!" Lord Duxbury was now at the pond. "Where is Blackheart?" he asked angrily. "Where is my brother's assassin?" Wat saw a familiar figure running towards the forest. "My lord, I can stop him. Give me a bow and arrow," he said. "Don't kill him," said Duxbury. "I want him alive. Give the boy a bow," he ordered his men. "I remember his father was a good archer." Wat took the bow and arrow. Blackheart was nearly in the forest. "I didn't hit the deer last night," Wat thought, "but this is for my father." The distance was huge, but the arrow flew perfectly. It hit Blackheart in the leg, and the cruel lord fell into the pond. "Pull him out," Duxbury ordered his men. "Then pull out the arrow and throw him in the dungeons. He will pay for his crimes." He turned to Wat. "Thank you, boy. But what terrible torture was this?" "An ordeal for a witch, my lord," replied Wat. "But she wasn't a witch. She's the companion of a pilgrim from the north." "And where is she now, boy?" "She escaped," Wat smiled. The lord smiled at Wat. His face showed the signs of 1,000 adventures. Now he spoke to the villagers and Blackheart's knights. He was very angry. "Ordeals, witches. What barbarity is this? I went on a crusade to liberate the Holy Land from barbarity, but we are the barbarians. I saw Christians kill other people in the name of God. Then I returned to England, and what do I find? My brother killed, and Blackheart the lord of a cruel manor, where innocent girls risk death. Here is a paradox for my jester." He looked for the jester, but he couldn't see him. Wat spoke for the villagers. "Life will be better now. Long live Lord Duxbury," and everybody shouted happily. Matt and Linda were in the castle. It was deserted. Everybody was at the pond. "Quickly," said Linda, "before they come back. The computer's in this stable." She ran into a stable and started to move a pile of straw. "Matt," she said desperately, "it isn't here." Chapter 15. "It isn't there because it's here," said a voice Linda recognized. The jester was outside the stable and he had the computer. "Who's this?" asked Matt. "A friend," replied Linda. The jester smiled. "All the world knows I am only a fool, but only a fool knows all the world. I observe and understand many things." "What do you mean?" said Linda. "I know you are strangers in this place. Your secret must be in this special box," the jester replied. "But the stable was not a good place for it." "It's very important for us," said Matt anxiously. "Will you give it to us?" "Of course," laughed the jester. "What favor can a friend do if not give all his help to you? This is yours." Linda shyly kissed the jester on the cheek. He became red. "For once I have no words," he said, "but now it's time for you to go." Linda opened the computer and they heard a familiar beep. But the screen was empty. "What do we do now?" said Matt. "Quickly," insisted the jester. "I hear people. You must escape now." Linda thought for a moment. "Of course. Thank you, jester. Press escape, Matt." Matt pressed the button and they disappeared in a flash of white light. The jester smiled. "This magic was a joy to see. Goodbye, my friends. Remember me." Linda opened her eyes. Matt was beside her on the grass, slowly waking up. She looked around and was happy and relieved to see the castle ruins. They were behind the drinks kiosk. "Matt, we're in the future again." I can see, said Matt. But is it the present? A familiar voice answered his question. Matt! Linda, where are you? The bus is going. It was Stubbs. Here we are. The two friends appeared from behind the kiosk. Stubbs looked at them, incredulous. Where were you, and why are you so dirty? Matt and Linda looked at each other. Their clothes were still a little wet and muddy. They laughed. Matt, you smell terrible, continued Stubbs. Did you fall into a medieval moat? No, I jumped in, replied Matt impulsively. Stubbs was surprised and curious, but Linda said quickly, Matt's joking. He doesn't want to say that we went to Duxbury Pond. He fell in and I saved him. They all laughed. As they went towards the bus, Matt whispered to Linda, Thanks. That was a great idea. Hurry up, you two, said Stubbs. I'll show you my guidebook on the bus. Did you know there was once a cruel lord called Blackheart at the castle? He killed witches in the pond. What happened to him? Asked Linda curiously. He escaped from prison into the forest but was killed by wolves. Stubbs arrived at the bus first. Look, everybody! Matt and Linda fell in the pond. The class laughed, but Linda and Matt weren't embarrassed. They laughed too. Then Mr. Wells appeared. Here you are, he said with relief. I hope you enjoyed your trip. Matt and Linda looked at each other, smiled, and gave him his computer. It was a little boring, they said together.